So today, as I said, it's all about resumes and cover letters. We're going to get real into the nitty gritty of very practical examples, practical resources we're going to pass along to all of you. So to get that started, as we always do, we always have free resources prepared for everybody who comes. So the first thing I'd like to do is offer that up. And for those who, even if you've come before, this is some new material that you're welcome to request. Let me get my chat open so I can see you. Okay. Can everybody see my screen okay? My PowerPoint slide? Can someone just confirm that for me in the chat before I start flapping my jaw and nobody can see it? Yes. Thank you, Amy. Okay. So here's some all new stuff. So if you've been, how many of you have been here before? Been to our sessions before? Show of hands if you've been here. I know we have a lot of returning folks. And how many of you are new? Who's never been here before? Who's new to our community? Okay, great. So this is really for anybody who would like it. We've put together a Google folder of resources that are going to really go through everything we're going to cover today, giving you the examples in a Google folder. Okay. So what we're going to cover is how to use any job a student's ever had as work experience. How many of your students say, I don't know what to put on my resume. I've never had a job. I don't know what to say. We're going to get into that. We're going to learn how to strengthen our list of classes and our extracurriculars. We're going to give you a complete Rubin approved resume for a student, covering the same techniques we're going to talk about. And then we're going to get into our, what I love to talk about, our storytelling cover letter approach. How many of you have heard me talk about our storytelling cover letter before? I know I've talked about it in webinars in the past, and it's our special approach of teaching students to tell stories. We're going to get into all that. I won't even dive in just yet. We're going to give you how to help students determine their perfect story to share about themselves, how to use their COVID experiences to share a story of how they've overcome obstacles, ideas of where stories can come from, and more. So it's all wrapped up in a Google folder that you can use after we're done today, once we go through it all together. We also always like to give out this document for those who don't have it yet. It's an online presentation checklist. So it's a helpful step-by-step guide right before you go into a live presentation. Posture, the lighting, the background, what to say, your voice, your eye contact, the audience engagement, all these little reminders before you go live. And that's also going to be in this Google folder. So for those of you who would like this material, whether you've been here before, whether you're brand new to us, all you have to do is type the word interested and your email address in the chat. Okay, interested and your email address. For those who are new to our community, new to our material, what we prefer to do is have a brief phone call. Quick call, probably tomorrow or Friday, just right after the set webinar, to learn about your program, understand what you're doing in the fall or even during the summer, pass along the resources, help it make sense for you in your own environment. Plus, we'd like to get to know you, because this is not, we've been doing Zoom so long, I almost forgot what an in-person event looks like, right? It's like we want the chance to talk to everybody we can, say hello, and put faces to names or voices to names, as it were. So thank you to those who are putting this in the chat. We will be in touch with with everybody in the next day or so. So look out in your email for that. And for those who are new, we'll send you a Google invitation with just a couple of minutes on the calendar to say hello and pass it along. So look out for that for the new folks here. Okay, and also for those who will be watching this on recording, we have a lot of folks that watch this on recording. You can also receive this information by emailing support@rubineducation.com with the subject line of Rubin worksheets, and we'll pass it along that way if you're watching this sometime in the future and we are no longer live. Two other things to mention while we are together. We keep rolling with the webinars, and we have another one coming up. Just keep it on your radar. We'll have the registration coming out soon. On June 30th, we're going to cover your best job interview ever. How many of you teach job interview skills along with resume and cover letter? I'm sure they go together, right? So we're going to get into job interviews next, June 30th, 2 weeks from today, the same time. Again, more unconventional, uncommon approaches to impress anybody the student is talking to. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. So please join us then. And also everybody here today, tomorrow morning, we will pass along to you Thursday morning, a certificate for being here. You can put your name on it. You can type your name into it and proof that you were here. How many of you are here today to obtain some professional development time, 1 hour of PD. How many people are here for that? We want to make sure you get that PD in, right? So the certificate's coming to you, proof you were here. And so look out for that on Thursday morning as well. Okay, so I wanted to always get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. And then now we're going to move ahead into our resume and cover letter. Before I get into the lessons themselves, let me share the screen again so we can get into what we're going to cover. I do want to mention for the new folks, because we have new folks, and this is a different view for the returnees as well. So our company is called Rubin. We have an online curriculum that many CTE programs, work-based learning programs use. It's called Emerge, and it's a library of online resources for all kinds of communication skills, employability skills. I'll show you the topics briefly, and I'm also showing it to you within the context of Canvas. How many of you use Canvas in your schools, or Schoology, or Google? Tell me what LMS you're using in the chat. Google Classroom, Schoology, Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard. So our material integrates for single sign-on into different LMS. Thank you for sharing your LMS. So we cover a variety of topics. Just for the new folks, here's what we do. Email etiquette, teaching students to write emails. We cover life skills, inclusion, access, equity, and diversity exercises, phone and video etiquette lessons, like how to leave a voicemail. What a concept these days, right? How to leave a voicemail on an employer's phone. Isn't that important? Raise your hand if you think that's an important skill, that all students should know how to leave a voicemail when they're calling a business. We teach networking emails. We're going to go into these two topics in depth today, resumes and cover letters. We teach internship and job outreach emails, LinkedIn profile creation, and how to communicate and send networking messages on LinkedIn. Job interview prep, we're going into that unit on June 30th. We also cover entrepreneurship communication. Do we have any marketing or business teachers here? Any DECA folks, FBLA, any of the entrepreneurship side of things, virtual enterprises? Who do we have? Tell me in the chat. We have business idea development, sales writing skills, writing website pages and writing e-portfolios. We teach public relations, like how to write press releases. We teach fundraising communication, like writing a grant application or a Kickstarter page. And finally, and sorry, we have Consuelo says BPA, forgive me, also BPA folks here. Writing for managers, writing skills to clients, project management communication, public speaking training, writing reports like a status update, a memo, and exercises for students in leadership roles. We help students in Skills USA and DECA and FBLA and all over the country, different student groups, to prepare for competition and also to communicate with their team, with adults, with teachers, with the community, with employers. It's all about how we write and speak. So this is who we are, a big library of topics that integrate to LMS. And what we're going to do today is go through our resume and cover letter content so that you can bring it back to your classrooms and then use our free resources to make it real for students this summer or in the fall. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dive into the resume, all right? And the biggest idea, let me get to the top here. The biggest thing I want you to remember and pass along to your students with resumes is this line right here. Never, ever be vague. Let me turn on, we have a little highlight tool. It helps to guide us along. Never, ever be vague. What does that mean? It means to include numbers and statistics where appropriate. How many of you teach students now? Numbers, numbers, numbers in our resumes. The statistics, the numbers are what stand out. If our resume is all words, the reader just goes right down the page. There's nothing to hold on to. But as soon as there are numbers, our eyes will find the numbers first. We just do because they stand out from the words. So here are some examples of sentences that do not contain numbers. I want to see if you could help me with this. I want to make this a little bit like class time, but this is how we learn, right? We have to be participatory and interactive. So look at this sentence. It says, as president of my company, or let's say president of my student organization, I helped our small team raise a lot of money after we hosted a fundraiser for a large crowd. Who can tell me what is wrong with this line? What is this line missing? Tell me in the chat, what is missing from this line? Liz says it, numbers. So can somebody fill it in for me? Don't need to write the whole sentence, but you give me a number. Tell me what a lot of money is to you. Give me a number that would represent a lot of money and a lot of people. Put some numbers in the chat. Whoa, Paula said $100,000. That's a lot of money. A team of 10. Let's see a couple more. Show me some numbers. $15,000, $500. We see the difference now when we add numbers. First of all, this is what happens when we put a line like we raised a lot of money. What does it require the person to do who's reading? Do they know how much money we're referring to? Does the employer, the scholarship committee, the university, do they know how much money a lot of money is? Thank you, Rhonda. Thanks everybody for filling this in. No, they have no idea. Too often we make the assumption that the reader just knows about our life just because we know about our life, right? Like we've somehow transmitted the information from our brain to their brain. So they'll just know, right? And we have to show the students, how many students could write this line right here? I helped our team raise money after we hosted a fundraiser. How many students in America could write that sentence without any numbers in it? Someone tell me, how many students you think? I'm going to go ahead and say millions. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Jennifer says tons. Teresa says all. That's right. But once you put your numbers, $15,000, 500 people, how many students can say that? Do we get more specific? When we add our numbers, we make our resume unique to us. No one else could claim our numbers. Tell your students this, please. No one else owns your numbers. They are your numbers. They are your story, which we're going to get into storytelling much more in a little bit. These numbers are yours. So anytime you are reviewing your students' resumes and you see an experience line in their resume without numbers, we need to start asking them questions, right? What would be the question you would ask your students? They say, I helped our team raise a lot of money. Okay, so what would be your question to the student? What would you ask the student to get that number? Someone asked, show me the question in the chat. What are you asking them? Michelle, make sure we're all doing all panelists and attendees, please. All panelists and attendees. Michelle says, how much money did you raise? Right? How many people came? Because your students have the information. It's right beneath the surface. They don't know that they're supposed to tell other people their numbers. Too often they just leave it off because they weren't sure. They never even thought about that approach. They just leave it with the line we're looking at. But the information we need is right below the surface. I mean, it is right there. One question, how much money? And then boom, there it is. And that becomes much more enticing to the employer or whomever is judging this resume. We need that student to go from the giant stack to the callback or bring in pile, right? We got to get them from that resume stack to an interview. And the more numbers they add, the more distinctive the resume is going to be. All right, I think we beat that one down enough. I think you understand. And if you're already employing this strategy, then I hope it's just a reminder that numbers make the difference. Even though we're all about writing and using our words, it's our numbers that actually make the difference here when we're talking about our experience. Okay, so the biggest thing is, what did I say up here? Never be, I know you can see the word. What's that V word? Someone type it out for me. Don't be this. Don't be vague. I know I'm rhetorical here. You can read just fine, but I need you to lock this in. Vague gets you nowhere. Specific will open a door. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, which is our skills section. A lot of misunderstanding about a resume skills section. A lot of times students will incorporate qualities into their skill section. Leadership, dedicated, passionate, time management. But what the employer or the audience, whoever it is looking for are more specifics. They want to know, what can the student do tangibly? All of those qualities, we will show you how to put them into a resume or into a cover letter in a unique way in just a minute. So take all those adjectives, all those characteristics, and set them aside. Okay, they don't count in this section. What counts are the real deal words, the real deal stuff that you are teaching them in your CTE courses. Adobe Photoshop, Wix website builder, AutoCAD, Spanish speaker, short order cook, QuickBooks, CPR certified, Square point of sale system, Google AdWords. Can you put in the chat for me some of the skills in the same vein as these? What are some of the software your students use, some of the certifications they obtain, some of the tools they use within the different classes? Let's rattle some out, and please do all panelists and attendees. Okay. We have a lot of Microsoft Office. Let's get some more. They're flying through. Panoramic X-rays. I love that. Adobe Connect, Google Suite, OSHA 10 Healthcare, Adobe After Effects, Google Apps, Python, SID certified, SBS certified, ASE certifications, CNA certifications. Excellent. This is what we're after. Okay, just like we talked about, what did I say that V word was from the work experience? Don't be what? Don't be vague, right? This is what I'm after. This is what employers need to see. This is what it's all about. Not only if a human is holding this up by hand. Who here has heard of applicant tracking systems? ATS, who's heard of those? When you get to big companies onboarding a lot of people, well, they use software to screen people out. So how many, if they were looking for the word leadership or motivated, how many people would show up in a scan for that word on a resume or a cover letter? Just, how many people, Liz says it again, every single person, right? But how many, let's go back to one of those really nice niche terms here, like going back up the list, Python, love that, Python, Java, like coding languages. If they search for Python and your student has Python on the resume, how many people are going to have Python on that resume? Let's say there's 1,000 applicants and they look for hardworking and motivated, they get like 800, but they search Python, how many are going to show up? It goes down to maybe like 10 people, right? Or something very small, because this is how your students are going to market themselves through the skills you're teaching them. The beauty of CTE is that they are gaining the most prized skills in the market. Okay. You're giving them the skills everyone's looking for. So they have to put it on their resume or the world will not know. Raise your hand if I'm making some sense. This is what it's all about, is what they're learning from you today, filling up their skills section with these specific words, these proper nouns, these products, these companies, these certifications. This is the differentiator. Okay. And I do want to say, not to diminish Microsoft Office, but I will say, as time goes on, Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, they don't hold the same weight in the workplace and industry as they once did because they're so commonplace. Can students put it on their resume? Yes. But are they better served getting more in depth with Adobe Connect or really more of those niche skills and certification software? Yes. So you can put it there, but if the resume just says Microsoft Office and Word or Excel, it's limiting because too many people have it. So we have to get to the spots where you're going to be set yourself apart from the crowd with words that they won't be able to use. Okay, so please keep that in mind. From the industry looking back in, it's become too commonplace to lean on this alone. There's too much else out there for students to get their hands on, and any tool they touch, put those words on that resume. Okay, all right, let's move it along. Let's get into the work experience again. We're going to use that discussion about vague, and we're going to hit from a different angle. I asked you before, how many of your students tell you, I don't have any jobs yet. I don't know what to put on my resume. I don't have any jobs. Perfectly legitimate. They're in high school. They're in college. Of course not. You'd hope they're able to focus on their studies and not have a full-time job or even a part-time job. A lot of students do, but some don't. So what can they do? Should they leave their resume blank? Should they not make a resume? Absolutely not. Everything that they've done in their lives counts. But what matters is how they write about the experience. And you're going to notice something familiar in just a second, since we've not hit it from so many angles. Let's talk about right here as one example. Let's talk about babysitting. Okay. Childcare. They'd say, oh, well, I've done some babysitting for my neighbors. That's a job right there on your resume. But what matters is how you write about it. So let me put it right here. Read these 3 bullets and you tell me what you see right away. What catches your eye right away? Thank you very much. Oh, and I like that too. Michelle says supervision, but numbers, specifics, right? Look how specific we are. Babysitting and childcare for 2 families during summer 2018. 5 children, ages 11, 7, 5, 4, and 2, 9 to 3, 4 days a week. How many numbers am I throwing at you in this? It's nonstop. So think about the questions you need to ask your students to get these numbers out of them, right? Like, let's just play out the conversation. How many families did you babysit for? Babysit for 2 families. Okay, so what's the next question? Out of those 2 families, what would be the next question out of your mouth? 2 families, so that means how many what? How many what? 2 families, how many, Liz said it, kids, how many kids? And then the next question is, just look at the bullet point. What's the next question? Okay, 5 kids, and then what are their what? Ages. What are their ages? And then when did it occur? Right? Take it through the who, what, when, where, and why, and how. Okay? How many? When was it? What were their ages? Okay? Because this is the information that will set them apart. If you look at this right now, let's say you're an employer. Would you look at this and say, oh, they've just done babysitting, I don't consider them serious for this position? Would you say that after reading these 3 bullets? Would you discount them, say, forget it? I need a student who's had real world job experience. I will not talk to this person. Would you say that after reading these bullets? Absolutely not. You would take this person as seriously as anyone else because they've demonstrated responsibility. That's right, Liz said it. They took care of real people and they got paid. Say no more. But what matters here are the numbers. Because if there weren't the numbers, the person would not take it as seriously who's reading it. And it would look like a teenager saying, I did babysitting, the end, right? Instead, it transforms that position into something much more professional. So this is one of the resources we're going to pass along, this page right here. So you can reference this with your students and say, look, you did volunteering, you've done sports, you've done babysitting, you've mowed lawns. Look at this example. How can you make your example look like this example? Does that make sense to everybody? So use this as a reference from this day forward to help your students to look their best. Okay, so this is what it's all about with resumes. It's specifics, it's keywords, it's proper nouns, it's products, it's data, it's everything that you can hold on to. And that's right. Irene says it right. Now you're getting it. Lawn care, which machine? So they can list off in their skills. I've worked on this particular lawnmower or this. All of that stuff counts, right? Give me brand names. Give me specifics. Give me product names. Give me the most, in-depth you can possibly get. Give me numbers. Give me all of it. Fill up the resume with all that good stuff because everything else will go right off, the person it'll just go right off over their eyes. They won't see it. They won't remember it. They won't hold on to it. Can't you hold on to this? You can actually get your hands around this person's experience. You can even picture it. You can visualize it, right? And that's what we want the employers to do. Okay, so I hope that these topics and lessons are getting through. It's not complicated. I'm not suggesting that they turn their resume into a Starbucks cup or a cereal box or some kind of wacky creative project. That's not what we advocate here. We say, do a resume the way you do a resume, how you hold it in your hand, a piece of paper, but tell your story better than the next person. And with that, that's a nice little segue. I do want to mention before we get into the storytelling side of things that one more thing that I'm glad I clicked on this tab first. One other piece of the resume that I want to make sure, and we'll pass this along too, but I want to make sure you understand. Okay. Athletic achievements and current classes. How many of your students put their current classes and or athletic or community achievements on their resume? Show of hands, how many do that? Perfectly fine. They're in school, legitimate, should absolutely be there. But again, there's a typical way to do it, and then there's a special way to do it. And you already know where I'm going. Already know where I'm going with it. Let's look at athletic achievements. Okay. They say member of the Acme High School volleyball team. That's the bullet. What is it missing? What is it missing? What's not there? It just says Acme High volleyball team. Christy said it. Irene said it. Position, you could say the position. We could also, you could go that route. I went the numbers route, but that's fine too. You can say your position, and look what we did. How many hours did you practice? 100 hours before the season began. Helped the team to a 16-4 record and 2 wins in the playoffs. Now, this is where we started right here, and this is where we ended up. Which line is better? Okay, position is great. Anita said it, number of wins, games, practice. So, right. We need to ask our students questions. How much time do you practice each week? Each month, right? What's the team's record? Look for the numbers. There are numbers everywhere in our world, every direction. You could probably take this your own route, but what numbers does the student possess? And it's always good to think about it like in the biggest possible. So they say, well, I practice, 10 hours a week. So you'd say, well, how many hours is that in a season? And they say, oh, it's like 250 hours. It's like, whoa. Then you put 250 hours on their resume, right? So think about how big you can make that number. You're not lying. You're just playing the numbers game. And you're giving students a number on their resume that no one else is going to have. How many students around the country are on a volleyball team? Thousands. How many can say they practice for 250 hours or 100 hours, 16-4 record, 2 playoff wins? Just this one person. Just this one person. No one else can say that. It's too specific. So we got to get them down to this level of detail. So again, we'll provide this in the Google folder. Use this as an example as you're helping them write about their achievements. And lastly, their classes. Okay, typically you would just put your classes. You just list them out. But again, is that interesting to an employer? To just read a list of classes all day without any detail? It's just like, okay, another student taking digital marketing. I've read 50 of those today, right? So let's change it up. Let's have them add 1 half line explaining what they do in the class. Examination of international events with a focus on U.S. relations in Asia. Online marketing strategies like social media and SEO. Final project is a 15-page number, full color magazine about student life on campus. Again, which one's better? Here or here? It's like an eye exam. Is it number 1 or number 2? Number 1 or number 2, right? So it's not asking them to do much more work. It's just asking them to think about, how do I make my experience unique to everyone else's experience taking honors English in America or even in my city? Okay. So these are simple strategies, just require a different approach, a different way of thinking. That's what I'm after today. I'm not trying to reinvent resumes. I'm not trying to tell you it should be something you've never done before. Everything I'm going through, their students are already doing. It's just approaching the exercise with a different frame of mind. Okay. Show of hands, you think we got the general idea of resumes down? Think you understand what we're trying to tackle here? Okay. All right, then let's switch over to cover letters. And one of our favorite topics, because, and I should have said it at the beginning, before we do that, let me just give you a really quick background, because I think it's always important to understand context, background, where ideas come from. Okay, so prior to working in educational curriculum, I was a TV reporter. Some of you know this, some of you do not. I was a reporter for a CBS TV station in Virginia. And I learned a lot of great skills in that role. I decided to leave it because I felt like all I was doing was covering crime. Who likes to watch crime on the local news? Not me. And I didn't like perpetuating it either. I just didn't find joy in doing that work, but I gained a lot of great skills in that time that I've carried with me it's been over 12, 13 years since I've done that job. And so one of the biggest things that I learned was the power of telling stories. Because if you're watching the news or a TV show or anything and it's boring to you, what do you do? If you don't like something on TV, what do you do? Tell me in the chat. What happens next? Where are you going? You're changing the channel or you're turning it off. So is that the same thing as an employer reading a cover letter that doesn't quite get their attention? You think they're going to spend how long do you think an employer is going to spend on a cover letter that doesn't get their attention? How many seconds do you think they're going to give to that cover letter? Irene says 6 seconds. This is an unscientific study, but it's about that. They're like, I've seen it before, bop, done. Next one, next one, next one. So what can we possibly do to grab their attention immediately and make them say, oh, hold on a second. I have never seen a cover letter like this one before, and I am going to keep reading. So let's talk about our Rubin approach called the storytelling cover letter. Okay, and how many of you have used this with your students in your classes? Because I know we have some folks who have been here before. Anybody done this with students yet? I know we have some hands going up. We've talked about this for a long time. We don't change our tune here. We just like to tell more people. So the student's going to tell a story of a time they overcame an obstacle. Get my chat up again. Here we go. Okay. And one of the best places to find a story right now is through COVID, because everybody's gone through some kind of obstacle or hardship over the past year and a half. So that is a dynamite place to turn a negative into a positive in the form of a cover letter. Let me show you exactly what I mean with an example. Can you all follow me here and follow me on this short story? This is the introductory line, okay? On April 17th, 2020, my parents sat me down and gave me a hard truth. That's the introductory line to the cover letter. Due to the economic situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, both of my parents were laid off from their jobs. My dad is an electrician and my mom is a front office manager for a dental practice. My dad told me, I know you're busy with school, but if you could find a part-time job, it would help our family financially. Right away, I knew what I had to do. As the oldest of 4 children, there's a number, I went online and looked for local job opportunities. I found one restocking shelves at Acme Grocery. Since late April, I've worked part-time at Acme, earning $9 an hour and usually clocking in 20 hours a week alongside my honors classes and responsibilities as vice president of the Spring High School Computer Club. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed me in ways I didn't expect, but I will rise to the challenge. My name is John Doe. I want to be your next intern at Tech Corporation. As I demonstrated above, I have battled through tough circumstances and used those moments to improve rather than feel sorry for myself. I know I'll bring the same attitude and effort to the Tech Corporation team. Okay, let me ask you a question. Tell me in the chat, what are some of the qualities, some of the characteristics, some of the words, the adjectives you would use to describe this young man? What words come to mind? Tell me in the chat while I get some more. Responsible, resilient, self-motivated, positive mindset, driven, dedicated, growth-minded, accountable. I got a question for you now. Were any of those words in here? Any of those words you're showing me, were they in here? Was there a long string of them? I'm motivated, dedicated, accountable. Nope, they weren't in there, but those qualities came through. Were any of those words in the resume stuff we just talked about? Any of those words on the resume or the cover letter? No. We need to get away from the adjectives. We need to get down to our own life. So this is a great example of how this student overcomes challenges. Wouldn't you want to interview this young man? If this crossed your desk, would you want to interview this young man before someone else got him? I know I would. And look what happened here. What is a typical opening line to a cover letter? Every cover letter on earth, if you Google cover letter samples, what's the first line? It's going to be, hi, Mr. or Ms. or hi, hiring manager. My name is John Doe, and I'm interested in the position of intern at Tech Corporation, right? Every single one's going to start the same way. What do we do here? Like any good book, any good drama, we just launch into the challenge of the situation, the problem, the issue. We just go right there. So are we going to get past those first 6 seconds here? What do you think? Are we going to make them read more than 6 seconds? Christy says, you bet. Okay. And let me just throw one more thing at you if you need more evidence as to why this approach is more effective. Where do we learn the person's name? Nikki said, no, there is no greeting line. There is no, well, you could say, dear hiring manager. Yes. But we're not getting into like, my name is, okay? The name is at the bottom. Okay, name is at the bottom. Why is the name at the bottom? Shouldn't we always start with our name? Shouldn't our name come first? Where we go to school come first? What kind of approach is this? This is crazy. Pete said, it's the last thing you read. And you know why it's the last? Heidi just said it. The name doesn't matter. The person's background doesn't matter. Their race, their gender, their neighborhood, none of that matters. What matters is who they are on the inside, right? On the inside. What was that famous Martin Luther King quote? To not judge by the color of our skin, but by the, can someone finish that line for me? The what? Blank of our blank. Who knows that expression, that famous line? Irene, Ellen, everybody. The content of our character. Let's let everybody out there in the world judge our students on the content of their character. Not what they look like, not what their name is, none of that. We should all be judged on who we are in here. And the only way we're going to tell the world that is if we lead with our story. And everything else comes second. Because it's a tough world out there. And you know what? People make snap judgments about people all the time. It's not fair. But we judge books by their cover. We all know it. It happens. It's a reality. So we need to give them a real good reason why they should talk to us right away. There is no time to waste. And that's why this approach is effective. And for the students who have used this approach in the classroom, big things start happening. We have examples on our blog. The phone rings, the emails come back, the interviews happen because the employer will say, I read 200 applications today and you're the only one I remember. You're the only one I remember. Because does anybody ever forget a good story? You ever forget a good story? You remember it for weeks, for months, forever. And every one of us has a story. And I would encourage you to help your student locate their story. And to do that, the student's going to tell you this, okay? Because we've done this many times and we know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to tell them we're going to try and do a storytelling approach. And you know what they're going to say? I don't have a story. I don't have a story. They're going to say that. They're going to say, I don't have any work experience. Yes, you do. You were a babysitter. And you're going to say, I don't have a story. You say, yes, you do. You lived through COVID as one example. Or there are lots of other examples. And we're going to give you this sheet too. Here's some other places where stories can come from. A tough customer, how you overcame a tough customer. A class project where an issue could have delayed the finished product. A roadblock as a volunteer. A problem within a school club. Babysitting, mowing lawns, tutoring, delivering newspapers or marketing materials, fundraisers through your school or your church, school-based competitions, athletic competitions. Do you think that your students could find one example of their hard work and determination out of one of these examples? Raise your hand if you think all of your students have something across all of something in here, right? I can't tell you how important it is that you push back on them. You say, you do have a story. We're going to figure it out together. Or we have a group exercise we'll give you where they can talk about it as a group, determine each of their own stories. Because if they're going to put out cover letters into the world that are basically Google templates that say, my name is so-and-so and I'm dedicated and passionate, can I intern for you? They are not going to get responses, or it's going to be a heck of a lot harder. Or they can go right to the front of the line if they start telling their story. Because there's a lot of the same out there and there's very little different. And we want them to be instantly different through their story and their story alone. Okay. Question from Heidi about difficult life experiences and persevering through those. Is it too personal? Great question. You have to assess it as it comes about. Okay. Something, maybe something too personal that's inappropriate for a cover letter. You'll have to know it when you see it. It's hard to tell you a hard and fast rule on that, because sometimes I think, caring for an aging relative or helping parents pay the bills, that stuff is fantastic for cover letters. You have to gauge it. You have to know it in the moment and get a second opinion if need be, because they may go down a road that's just not appropriate for employment, but many times just an example of a time that they proved themselves. That's what we want to see. Show me that you have overcome something. Also, as I almost forgot to mention, as I just said, stories from home, taking care of younger siblings while your parents work, sharing internet with your family members and turning your classwork in on time, working a part-time job to help your family, home fixes, home repairs. Students were home for a long time last year. What were they doing? Were they doing anything around the house? Anything, any little challenge they faced. Did they quit or did they finish it out? That's all we need to know. Okay. So again, we're sending this to you, and I'll make the offer again at the end, because I want you to not just listen to this and leave. I want you to take this with you. I want you to share these ideas in your classrooms. Tell me, which classes do you think would be appropriate for what we're talking about today? Tell me a class that you would try out this storytelling approach in. Give me a name of a class in the chat. What class would this work in for you? Any CTE course, right? That's really the idea, but great. What I love about this and what you're showing me, and this is just really like what gets me so excited about it, is that this material, these lessons are for every student in every class, any direction, any career. Okay, this is not limited to health science or marketing. It's not some slick social media technique. This is for everybody. Construction, ag, everywhere, truly everywhere. Children, early childhood, everything. Because learning how to tell your own story is one of the most valuable skills you could ever teach a young person, because we don't know that we're allowed to do that. It's not commonly taught. It's not seen. But when we learn to do it, the doors swing open. And everyone deserves the opportunity. How many of you have inclusion, equity, diversity themes running through your school division? So this looks on the surface like a cover letter exercise, but really it's inclusion, equity, access, and diversity. Because if you teach someone to tell their story, you are bringing them up and they are able to compete. They're able to land opportunities that may have been otherwise closed to them, because the person's going to judge them on all the wrong things. They're going to judge them on surface qualities and not who they are in here. So is it a cover letter exercise? Yes. But is it something much deeper than that? Yes. And that's what, as a company, and what we love to teach, is that there's just so many lessons learned here and so much that is achieved when we teach students to be their most authentic self. Okay. As we start to turn our corner, head for home, and answer some last questions, I want to reiterate, for those who came in a little bit after, what I mentioned at the beginning. Okay. So for those who didn't see it, we put together a Google folder. Now all these bullets make a lot more sense, don't they? So everything we just covered is going to come to you in a Google folder. The resume information, the cover letter information, Google Docs with all of it. So you can just hang on to it, share it, use it, and help other students and teachers with this lesson. Also, an online presentation checklist, which we just always like to include, because this is going to be a skill we need for the rest of our lives now. Just online presentations are here to stay. Despite lifting restrictions. We're still going to be doing online presentations. It's just a part of life now. So a checklist on how to look your best, sound your best. For those of you who missed this offer before, this is free. Just put your email address and the word interested in the chat. Email address and interested. Okay. And we're going to, for those of you who are new to our community, we always like to have a brief phone call to say hello and learn about what it is you're teaching, and then pass along the resources so you can make the most of them. So if you're new to us, we're going to send you a Google invitation for a quick 5-minute call, probably tomorrow or Friday. If the time doesn't work, just suggest a new one. And we just want to say hello and make this happen for you and push these ideas into the schools. Okay. Last couple things to mention. If you missed this live and you're watching recorded, email us here and we will pass along the resources to you. Last 2 things, please join us in 2 weeks for our next webinar on job interview skills. We're going to, again, have an uncommon approach to job interviews that, again, involves stories. So get ready for that. We're going to switch gears to job interview on June 30th. Okay, please, you'll see the registration stuff come out in the next couple of days. So please sign up and tell any colleagues who also need that PD time. And then we're going to send out a certificate tomorrow morning to all of you for being here, so you can prove you were here for that 1 hour of PD, which I hope you felt was time well spent. So please make sure that you look out for that. And we may end up just finishing a few minutes early, which is no big deal. You still get that full hour, I promise. But I do want to have a question, because we're trying to show more and more teachers that these webinars exist. So how many of you saw or signed up from this because it came to you in a Facebook community where you have an educator group? Did anybody come in through a Facebook group? Because we're trying to reach more people during the summertime. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Yeah, let me know which Facebook group it was, because we want to, it's hard right now. We're not together and there's still no conferences and we're all scattered. So we want to reach people in community groups as much as possible and through our emails. So thank you for sharing that with me. It's helpful for us to know if that outreach is working as we are trying to get folks to join us over the summertime. And we will, how many of you joined us for our webinars in the spring where we interviewed people from different career paths? You know, we had a lot of folks there. We talked to a Hollywood film producer, we talked to a farmer, we talked to a police officer, all kinds of people, and discussed the employability skills required for each job. And just so you know, we're going to do those webinars again starting in mid to late August, where we're going to interview people from all kinds of backgrounds and let students learn from people in real world situations, and also understand that you have to be a good communicator in every single job that you're in. So that's the summer is for PD, and then the fall we're going to get back to having students join us. And so they were so well attended and we had such a great time that we're definitely going to do it again. They'll always be free, always free. So when you see it fly around, you know, you can always forward it around to people, and we just want to fill up these Zoom rooms and have a really meaningful time together. So just kind of as you think ahead to the fall. So does anybody have any last questions about what we covered today? Otherwise we can finish a few minutes early and I'll give you that time back. I'm sure you got plenty of things to do with your summer, but I wanted to just end with any last questions. I appreciate everybody being here. I really, you know, for those of you who know our company, we're really big on email etiquette, but resumes and cover letters are a huge part of the equation. And we just think that we kind of come at a different angle that we hope will catch the attention of those who really need to appreciate what your students are capable of and bringing their words out. So we look forward to giving you all of this information in the next few days. Megan said, are there specific programs you recommend for creating resumes? You know, we'll be straightforward that we're not a graphic design type curriculum. We're not teaching creative design. I wouldn't have you could look at tools like Canva as one option that has some free templates. You know, as long as it looks professional, it's organized, it's structured, it's consistent, that's good enough. In my eyes, what really matters is the words on the page. So I would not have them focus all their energies on making this beautiful, colorful, snazzy resume. Make it look professional, and you can use a template that looks good, but what counts the most are the words. It is substance over style every single time. Even if they're applying to be a graphic design intern, it matters how the resume looks, but it also matters what they're saying about themselves. So I would put how it looks is important, but what they're saying matters the most, because our words carry all the weight. So thank you for that question, Megan. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Those of you on the West Coast, look how productive you are. You did a webinar first part of the day. Now you got your whole day in front of you with 1 hour of PD behind you. And so I appreciate everybody's time today. I look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. And again, look out. We're going to send the recording out tomorrow, Thursday morning. So just look for it in your emails in the morning, and then you'll have it. It'll be on our YouTube channel for forever and ever. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much. I hope you have a great rest of the day.